Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Dynasty Pros Devy Show. Alongside SC Romero and Justin Taylor, I am Tommy Harvey. Tonight, we will dive into some Devy goodness in the ACC. All that is coming up right now. Hola, amigos. How are you today?
Good, man. Always good when we talk some college football. It's season's upon us, so exciting stuff to come.
Absolutely. I got my Bobby Boucher jersey on. I got it in the mail today.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah, got the Bourbon Bowl patch on it and everything. All right, well let's go ahead and jump into this thing. Tonight we're going to do the ACC Devy relevant players. We're going to give you a couple names to keep an eye on. Also, they may not be high end Devy guys, but we're going to give you a couple names to keep an eye on. First off, we're going to start off with the QB position. All right, guys, let's go and jump into these ACC quarterbacks. What everybody knows Drake May, but let's go and start jumping into to guys beyond that. SC, what do you think of these ACC quarterbacks?
A lot of it is like, we want to see a little bit more, like you said, we know about Drake May. I like Kate Kublik. I like Clemson. I've spoke about him a little bit more. He's just a very fluid quarterback. I like the way he moves. I think he has a nice arm. He has some good IQ. Riley Leonard is, a guy I'm looking at a little bit more and more as I am diving into the ACC. Last Duke quarterback, that we can think of right now, at least in my eyes, is Daniel Jones. And Riley Leonard kind of seems like a little bit better of a Daniel Jones. He's a good threat with his legs. He can make the play outside the pocket, but he has a strong NFL arm, so he's fast enough to pick up the yards if he needs to by himself, but he can also make the throw to his receivers, which, you might not hear much about. So it might just be a Riley Leonard show out of Duke. And I think this is a year where if he shines in a conference that doesn't have the limelight of like your big, SEC or your Caleb Williams, Drake May is good, but this is an open conference as far as the top quarterback. I still believe, we all jumped on the Drake May bandwagon last year. I feel like as far as him just being a great quarterback, but I still think there's opportunity for there. Another guy I like really a lot is Jordan Travis. And my question really is this FSU's year? They have a great running back. They have some good wide receivers. They have Jordan Travis. This is a year where if he puts it all together, we could see another strong performance from a Florida State quarterback, something we really haven't seen as much since the Jameis Winston era, So this is something that I'm really excited to see in those two guys. My kind of sleeper guy, I would say, is probably Emory Williams. I don't know if it's just I'm not the biggest fan of Tyler Van Dyke out at Miami. Everything I've seen in him, I'm just not sold on him, but I really do like Emory Williams. I think he's a steady pocket passer. He's someone that doesn't seem like he folds under pressure. If the guy's coming right at him, he's still making a beautiful throw. He's not budging. He's not fidgeting or anything like that. He's still making a great throw. So I'm excited to see what's to come from him. It might be Tyler Van Dyke's show, but I think Emory Williams is someone you want to watch as far as those quarterbacks out of Miami.
Sure. I was actually just about to ask about Tyler Van Dyke and what you guys thought about him. A couple years ago, he was getting big time NFL draft hype, and last year he had some injury issues and kind of really fell off to the point where nobody's talking about him anymore. Do you think he's able to regain any type of form?
He's gonna have to have a stellar season. He's got to go out there and just do a lot. The team itself, you have some great weapons there, but I'm just not sold on his playing style. Like I don't see anything that tells me this is a draft prospect. I just don't see. He's kind of gone down the hill for me, and yet you have this Emery guy, kind of rising up the hill for me. So he's got to turn it around completely. He's gonna have to have at least a 500, win loss for this team. I think for anything to just pop for him in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree. I think Miami had all these guys everyone was talking about, feeling good about them, high prospects. It just feels like they can't get it together in Miami. No one's popping. All the guys we heard about coming in, all these guys, great prospects. Let pick them up in Devy, pick them up everywhere you can. It just feels like Miami's a little bit of a disaster right now. And Tyler Van Dyke's the guy. If I don't have him already, I'm not picking him up. If I got him, I'm just hoping and praying he gets it together this season. But there's so many other guys I'd rather have than him at this point, because like SC said, he's going to have a monster year to get back in good favor with the NFL people, I think, because he was that guy everybody saw the potential, and then he just has not hit that level where everybody thought the potential was going to be.
Sure. In my opinion, I think that the ACC is a 3 quarterback league whenever it comes to Devy. You got May, you got Klubnik, and then you got Riley Leonard. I'm not sold on Jordan Travis as being an NFL guy. To me, he's kind of a poor man's Bo Nix, and you know how I feel about Bo Nix. I think he's an XFL quarterback.
Huh?
I like Jordan Travis for like CFF and maybe in a C2C, but if I'm in a straight Devy league, I don't know about Jordan Travis. I like him as a player. I like him as a college player. I'm just not seeing the transition to the NFL.
Right.
I'm having a hard time seeing how he becomes a legit NFL quarterback. Now, we just saw Bryce Young. They'll take a chance on smaller guys, but you got to be elite if you're smaller for them to take a shot on you. I think that Florida State team is going to be good. I think Jordan Travis is going to get a ton of hype. I don't think it translates to the NFL.
I think he has a ton
I think that's something good that y'all bring up, though, because he's definitely going to be someone that's a possibility of greatness, but is it him or is it the weapons around him? That's something you really got to look at quarterbacks. Is the quarterback good or are the weapons elite? And that's something that a lot of people misinterpret because they're like, man, this quarterback threw for 4,000, 5,000, whatever, how many yards. But then you look at the wide receivers, and these wide receivers are catching contested ball after contested ball, so they're not really making it easy for the wide receivers. The wide receivers are making it easy for the quarterback. And Jordan Travis, he has some monsters on the outside. So, I mean, he really just has to throw it up, and he can get some guys there. So it's going to be very interesting to see what you definitely want to watch. Are these close contested catches that these wide receivers are making, or is Jordan Travis actually leading them down the field to find an open spot?
Well, Florida State has a really dynamic offense this year. Obviously, we've talked about Jordan Travis, and then Trey Benson is really rising up draft boards also. Then they brought in, they already had Johnny Wilson. Then they brought in Keon Coleman, who I think is their wide receiver one. And Jaheim Bell, the tight end from South Carolina, he's tremendous also. So I think that Florida State offense is going to have a really big year.
What are your thoughts on? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead with Florida State.
I was just going to say, I think it's a weak ACC, and I think this Florida State team is going to be near the top, pushing Clemson. I really do. So I think that helps Jordan Travis's stock, but we've seen that a million times in college football where a team is great, their quarterback plays super well, but everyone in the NFL looks at him as like, that's not an NFL guy. They just look at him like, hey, yeah, were you great in college? Did your team, win at a high pace? But does that translate? And that's where I'm worried about Jordan Travis. I think he's going to be good. I actually think FSU has a great shot to win the ACC. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if that is going to turn into anything other than maybe a 5th, 6th round pick for Jordan Travis.
Yeah, I think Riley Leonard is the guy who's going to really rise up draft boards this year. Now, granted, he still has another year of eligibility left if he wanted to come back and be a 25 guy. But I think in 24 he has a real possibility of jumping up into that QB 3-4 range.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about before that it's Caleb, Drake, May, and then the spot's open, right? So I mean, that is something. It's something like where we're seeing Bo Nix how he went back, where it's like, okay, maybe I wasn't gonna be one of the top quarterbacks, so maybe I should try another year. This is an opportunity for Riley, though, if he does get that hype to be one of the top quarterbacks. I mean, you have to go out. Yeah. What else? I know you said your quarterback room is just 3 guys here, but what are your thoughts on Phil Jerkovich since he's going to Pittsburgh now from Boston College?
I don't think he was very good at Boston College. I don't think he's going to be very good at Pitt. I know he was getting some hype prior to last season, but I don't see it.
Yeah, he's going to have to absolutely ball out at Pittsburgh to get what the hype was 2 years ago for him, I think. I mean, people were kind of jumping on him at Boston College 2 years ago. I've got him in a couple Devy leagues that I got in him early for cheap. But unless he just plays out of his mind, I don't see how he jumps up into NFL circles. It's going to be tough. The guy that intrigues me in this group, honestly, is Brady Allen from Louisville. Mm-hmm. I think Brady Allen has some talent. He moved from Purdue to Louisville with his head coach, who's proven to put up insanely great offensive numbers for quarterbacks and wide receivers. He's the guy I'm watching out for. I don't think Louisville is very good. I have to be honest. I don't think they're going to be very good, but I think they have a shot to have a pretty solid offense. And I think Allen could ball out. And I could see him jumping way up this list if he has a great season at Louisville this year. Now, it's questionable. But I like his talent. And I think it's a wide open position. And the fact that he has a coach that's an offensive mind and already knows him, I think gives him a big leg up. To me, he might even be slotting into number 4 in this division behind Jordan Travis or just behind him, depending on how this season works out. But Brady Allen, I feel like, might have a higher upside in the long run.
Just to go off y'all's thing on Jerkovich, prime example, he had Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers made him look good.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
exactly.
You mentioned Brady Allen, and I think Brady Allen's at least a year away. I think they're going to go with Jack Plummer this year at Louisville, the Cal transfer. But I do agree Brady Allen has a lot of talent. Braun brought him into Purdue for a reason there, and then he brought him with him from Purdue for a reason. So, as you can tell, my dogs are going nuts for a reason for a second here. So we'll go ahead and move on to
real quick. I just want to jump in real quick about Cade Klubnik. I think this is a big make or break year for Cade when it comes to Devy, because he got a little bit of chance. He's always behind DJ. Now he's got a chance to make this his team. He's the guy, clear cut number 1. If he comes out and balls, I think he moves way up. If he struggles, I could see the bottom dropping out on Cade because he's already a little smaller. He's not a huge guy. He had decent, obviously people loved him coming out of high school. But I feel like it's a big year for him. If you got Cade Klubnik shares, which I do, I have a bunch of them. I feel like this is a make or break year for him in this thing. Now, he can obviously go back to school, get another year, get better. But as far as his value goes, I think it's a huge season for his value.
And that's interesting you say that because I think right now it's Allar and Klubnik at the 2025 top, right? So, but I mean, this goes to show how much things could transition and change, right? How much someone could be, at the top and look great, a year ago, and then one bad season could just drop them, So I think that's very intriguing to say, and definitely something. He has weapons, so it's just can he utilize it and can he make the plays when he needs to?
Yeah,
and I always think when you're on a big team like Clemson, you've got all the weapons. If you don't show out as a quarterback, people start questioning you, like, hey, you got all the talent. You guys are pulling in 4 or 5 stars. Why are you not making it? Where I think, on the opposite side, if your guy, in a small school, if you're at a Louisville or a Syracuse, maybe people are like, well, you don't have as many good guys to make you look good. So I think that's the one thing that's going to hurt Klubnik. If he doesn't look really good this year, people are going to be like, dude, you have all this talent around you. Why do you not look good? So I think that's part of the, two-sided thing with the talent. Everybody wants you to have the talent, but if you don't look good with the talent, then they hold it against you.
For sure.
Yeah, there was another guy I was wanting to ask you guys about. Mitch Griffiths at Wake Forest. What do you see him having any type of NFL prospects, or was he just stuck behind Sam Hartman because Sam Hartman was all they had?
I'll jump in on here. I actually like him. I'm not sure what his Devy potential is. If I'm in a C2C or a CFF league, I've been picking him up everywhere because I think he's the guy that's going to put up good stats, and I think he has a chance to rise. Now, if you're in a deep Devy draft, maybe I grab him, or I'm waiting until next year. But if I'm in a CFF or a C2C, he's a guy I want to grab because especially C2C, because I think he could give me great college production with a chance that he's going to move his way up the board, even though I'm not going to have to spend much draft capital on him. So I actually like him a lot as far as that. Devy-wise, a little iffy how high he's rated right now, but if I'm in another format, I love him.
Hey, welcome into Austin here. We were talking about Mitch Griffiths. Do you see him as having any type of Devy potential, or is he strictly a CFF producer?
5'11", 192 is what Wake Forest has him listed at. That's just a tough projection. We don't see a lot of guys that size. I mean, you can just say Bryce Young did it, but Bryce Young was at Alabama, was a 5-star, started multiple years, made it to a national championship game. I don't know that Griffiths is going to have any of those things on his resume when he leaves. If he does, then yeah, we might talk about him that way, but no, probably not. Yeah.
The main difference there is Bryce Young was just a wizard in the backfield too, just able to get away from anything and everything. But we were talking about your boy Phil Jerkovich earlier. What do you see from him?
First off, I would prefer to never have Phil Jerkovich and my guy in the same sentence. So thank you very much there, Tommy, before I kick this off. Look, I'm not a Jerkovich guy. I have been very anti-Jerkovich since he left, since he went to Notre Dame and then left Notre Dame for Boston College. He's big, he's got a decent arm, and he can run a little bit, but he's not super accurate. I think he has some tunnel vision, some processing issues where he's really looking for one guy, and that's where he wants to go. I think at this point, he can make it to the NFL just because he's big and he can move around. But, man, I think he actually will probably play a little better than Slovis did for Pitt last year. But I don't have, real NFL expectations for him at this stage.
Well, here's the thing with Pitt's offense. They're not really geared towards the quarterback either. So he's not really going to be able to show what he's able to do if he's even able to do anything more than what we've seen from him.
Yeah, I'm surprised they let him come to Pitt because he really spurned them when he left town, and Narduzzi doesn't usually play that game. So maybe he really likes him, and maybe they'll not feature him, but give him some opportunities. I don't know.
Sure, I'm going to throw this list back up on the screen here for you, Austin. Do any of these quarterbacks outside of Drake May and Klubnik and Leonard do anything for you?
Man, you know what? I do think that Tyler Van Dyke can be a little bit of a post-hype guy. We'll see what he can do. New offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson in town. I think that they're going to push the ball downfield a little bit more, which I think is kind of what Tyler Van Dyke wants to do and is naturally inclined to do. And he's another guy that's, got NFL size, 6'3", 6'4", and he's mobile enough to fit in what the modern NFL wants. So I do like Tyler Van Dyke as kind of a rebound guy, but I think there are a lot of red flags there. Didn't perform well last year. It's a tough projection, but I like him overall.
SC had mentioned Emory Williams. Have you had a chance to take a look at him yet?
My co-host on the Campus to Canton podcast, Colin Decker, really, really likes Emory Williams. I don't dislike Emory Williams. I'm interested to see what Miami does, presuming that Tyler Van Dyke leaves this year. Do they go out and try to get a splashy guy in the portal or something like that? Do they turn to an Emory Williams, or they have Curry Brown there as well, right? So one of those guys, I don't really know, but I think he is a quality player. Enough uncertainty there that I probably don't love him in a Devy league unless it's really, really, really deep at this stage.
Sure. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next quarter, or to our next category. We're going to go with the ACC running backs next. What do you guys kind of think of this group of running backs here? Obviously, my opinion, it's headlined by Trey Benson. Then you have Will Shipley. Outside of those two, are we just kind of reaching for guys?
I'll jump in here. I'm a huge Trey Benson guy. I liked him last year going to Florida State. I just thought he was kind of a sneaky pick. So I took him in some areas real late. I just took him in our Devy draft for Dynasty Pros. I just jumped on him in the first round. Loved the pick. I think he has the potential to be a top 2 or 3 running back in the draft next year. I just think he's got a lot of skill. He's got explosiveness. He's got size. I think he's just one of the few guys still being slept on. They didn't really utilize him at FSU until the second half of the season last year. And then he kind of just broke out. So I love Benson. I know people on Shipley. I think Shipley's talented. Everybody else on this list, I feel like you are really taking a flyer. You're just going off pure athleticism, high school tape, hoping the guy makes it. I like Citizen from Miami, but it's like, I mean, you're just throwing a Hail Mary at this point, hoping he ends up being a guy, a really good guy. So I think those are the top 2 guys by far for me, especially Devy wise. Those are the top 2 guys.
Yeah, I know SC is really high on Mark Fletcher out of Miami. Go ahead and talk about him.
Yeah, man. I mean, this will sound crazy. He's my RB3 of that 2023 class, man. I really love that kid out of American Heritage. He's a monster. He's a bruiser tackler. I wouldn't say he necessarily has that speed, but he has enough speed to, break the open field. He's someone that can run through your guys, and I think he's going to be a good complement to your Trevante Citizen. So I'm really high on him. I'm taking him where I can. Again, I just feel he can become something. But again, as a freshman, I don't expect to see a lot of him, but I think he can make an impact if given the opportunity. The running back duo out of North Carolina, Mario Hampton and Petaway. I think that's a good Thunder Lightning combo, something similar to what we saw in Javonte Williams and Michael Carter. You have Carter, who's more of your, or not Carter, excuse me, Hampton, who's more of your Thunder, just the guy that's a bigger guy that can go in and make the moves. And then you have your Petaway, who's more of your Lightning, just a fast, shifty runner that can complement well for each other. And we're going into the air without Josh Downs, right? So what's going to happen? Are they going to go more with running? Is it going to be just the Drake May show where he's trying to find who's his target? We'll go into some wide receivers and some tight ends here. But I really like this duo of running backs, and I think we can see something excel from them at this next season coming up.
Yeah, there's one guy who's not on this list. LeQuint Allen out of Syracuse. JT, you had kind of mentioned him earlier. What do you see from him?
Yeah, I just think he has a potential to really fill that Sean Tucker role. They saw some talent of him. The Syracuse people are talking really highly about him. There was some off the field issues. They weren't sure he was going to be eligible this year. I think they've gotten that straightened out. He's with the team now. He's got a lot of ability on a team that wants to run the ball. And I could see him kind of coming out of nowhere this year. He didn't get a ton of carries last year. Obviously, Sean Tucker was running the show. But I just think he's a guy that's sneaky. I think he's sneaky that he could end up with really good production on a team that wants to run the football. And I could see him kind of jumping up charts next year if he has a really solid year this year.
Austin, do you have any thoughts on these running backs?
Citizen is the one that I have the top of all the other quote unquote backs. They did come out and news broke today that they expect him to play in 2023. Now that's not exactly a glowing endorsement, but for a guy that suffered the significant knee injury last year, we're assuming it's ACL and who knows what else, and didn't participate at all in spring, making it over a year. And we still hadn't heard anything about him, I think was really, really concerning. But he is an excellent athlete. He's 210 pounds plus. I believe they still have him listed at that. And he's a really, really good receiver. So I do think of all these guys, like if I'm just going to take a chance on somebody, I think he has the NFL skill set. And if we want to talk, Trey Benson had a very similar issues early in his college career with significant knee injuries that caused him to miss a bunch of time. Had to go somewhere else to do it, but went to Florida State and looked really, really good last year and now is getting some draft hype. It's really, you don't necessarily always want to mess around with these guys that have a big, significant injury like that, but I do think that you could see a similar path for Citizen down the line to maintaining and gaining value. So I do still like Citizen. He hasn't been a guy that I've been actively acquiring this offseason in any sort of formats, but I do still think the talent is there, and if I've had him places, I have been holding.
Yeah. If you go back to a year ago, Citizen and Jadon Blue out of Texas were really getting a whole lot of hype. Now they've kind of fallen down on the totem pole. Now I really hope Citizen is able to bounce back because I think he does have talent, and I'd like to see him actually get on the field. Let's go ahead and move on to wide receivers here. The ACC wide receivers, it is their deepest group in that conference. I've got them kind of headlined by Devontae Walker out of North Carolina. And then you got several guys after that. Hakeem Williams out of Florida State, Antonio Williams out of Clemson, Adam Randall out of Clemson. The incoming transfer Keon Coleman, I think, is going to be dynamite there at Florida State. Do you guys have any thoughts about these guys?
The top five, that you just mentioned, Hakeem Williams, I think that's going to be something great, as we were just talking about, Justin Travis here, that it's something very, or Jordan Travis, excuse me. He has the weapons around him. You just mentioned Keon Coleman, Hakeem Williams, your top five, and then your top six is Johnny Wilson, who's a 6'7" beast, and that's going to be really a guy that's going to be interesting to watch him, just because you don't see a lot of, wide receivers that tall that move like Johnny Wilson does, right? So Hakeem Williams, I think he's a physical athlete. He's someone that kind of already has the size of what you see in a George Pickens, but he's an aggressive. He can go up after the catch. He has some good IQ, to win at the line as well. I do like Antonio Williams and Adam Randall, and that goes back to even what JT was saying here about Klubnik with it being make or break. They got some weapons for him, right? So we had to see him take that next step to take that full control and say, this is my team, and these weapons can do it. I think it's a possibility where Klubnik makes them look better than what they are, but they are still some great talents there. Well, one guy I am going to toot my horn about, because I've been on him for the past 2 years, is Ollie Jennings out of Virginia Tech. I've been on this guy since he's been with Old Dominion. He's one of my favorite wide receivers to watch, and I'm really excited for him to get to this kind of national spotlight with your ACC going there. And I just think he's someone that has some great awareness, great route running, can make the play after the catch. And I'm really excited to see what he can do, because I've been waiting for him to say, I'm declaring for the draft. And I think this season he could possibly be one of your tight wide receivers that you're sleeping on.
Hey, JT, go ahead and jump in on these wide receivers.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is the Clemson and Florida State wide receivers. I think they're all so close. It's for Devy. If somebody just told me like, hey, JT, what do you take? Are you taking which top Clemson guy are you taking? Which top Florida State guy are you taking? To me, it's really tough. All those guys are so close. It's good. It's a make or break season. Who's gonna pop out? Is it gonna be Antonio Williams? Is it gonna be Adam Randall? Is it gonna be Bo Collins? Is it gonna be Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, Hakeem Williams? Like, I feel like those guys are so close. We just don't know. So right now, I feel like I'm just pulling a name out of a hat. I don't know who I want more in Devy because I feel like they're all so close. But I feel like every one of these guys have a chance to be really, really good. And it's just the question is, who you putting your hat on? Who are you taking? And right now, I have to be honest, I'm very, very confused about that group. Every Devy draft I do, I look at those guys and I'm not sure which one I want over the other one. I feel like they're all in the same group and I like them all, but I don't see a clear-cut favorite in that group. And that's what makes it hard for me in a Devy draft.
Yeah, I really tend to agree there. I have a hard time kind of going back and forth on Randall and Bo Collins. I think they're very similar as far as what they do, as far as their size. And then, Keon Coleman transferring into Florida State, is he able to become that wide receiver one there in Tallahassee? If he is, I think he could be an early day 2 wide receiver in the draft. If it's still Johnny Wilson, then that kind of means Keon Coleman didn't really become what I thought he was going to be. Couple sleepers I've got here that I really like. Donovan Green out of Wake Forest and DJ Collins, formerly known as Dakari Collins, transfer in from Clemson to NC State. I really like those guys. I think that they have big time talent. And I think that they're in prime positions to really have big seasons this year.
I agree with you about Keon Coleman. I think Keon Coleman needs to come out and show out pretty early for FSU if he's going to be a Devy guy. If he doesn't, I mean, right now everybody's like, hey, he's talented. He got screwed because Michigan State had a terrible offense. The quarterback was trash. If he goes there with Jordan Travis and all the talent around him, he doesn't absolutely ball out, people are going to be like, oh, really? Was it everyone around you at Michigan State, or are you just not that good? So I think Keon Coleman, for me, has a huge high ceiling and a low floor, because I feel like he could be like that guy that he could jump up big time, or he become irrelevant really quickly. So I feel like he's definitely, if you're taking him in a draft, you're taking the high side. You're hoping he absolutely balls out at Florida State, and that he ends up being a late first round, early second, mid second round pick. But if he doesn't ball out at Florida State, he's either staying another year or he's going to the draft and he's going to get picked late.
Yep.
I do like Green. I was a big A.T. Perry guy last year, and so I think Green, can definitely take over that one role. And so this is an opportunity for him. And he is a big play guy. I believe he was just north of over 17 yards per catch last season. So, this is his opportunity to show more than just that big play, right? To show he can actually excel on the route running. He can actually break away and make more than just the streamline plays for the quarterback. So I'm excited to see what he can do out at Wake Forest. You might not hear a lot about it just because it's Wake Forest and it's not your Clemson or your Florida State or, UNC for that matter. But it's definitely someone you want to keep an eye on, because he's probably going to be the guy at Wake Forest, as far as what you're looking for in a Devy aspect. Probably that's going to be the target for you in Donovan Green.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. SC, I love Green. He is my CFF guy all over. If I'm going to CFF C2C, I love him. I think he has a potential to have a monster year. Now, is that going to translate to NFL? I don't know. But, man, I think he has every opportunity to have a 90-catch, 1,100-yard season, 8-10 touchdowns, right in that A.T. Perry role, like you said. And if A.T. Perry can somehow break out a little bit for the Saints, I think it only helps him. They realize, it's not just a system guy. He's actually, can produce at that. But he's definitely a guy I like as a, a guy that can move up the rankings and you can get late. But I like him a lot.
I think Donovan Green's a better athlete than what A.T. Perry was.
For sure.
I agree.
100%.
I agree.
A.T. Perry was just a physical specimen. I think he was like 6'4", 6'5", or something like that. So I mean, he was just big. But yeah, no, Donovan Green all around, I think, is the better wide receiver.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Austin?
When it comes to wide receivers, I am the Drake meme. I say no to the 6'3", 205 Julio guy. I say yes to the 6 foot 185 route runner. And so I am actually completely out on Hakeem Williams. He showed up to camp really overweight, and they made him work his way into it. Never a good sign for a guy who has just relied on being bigger, faster, and stronger than everybody his entire career. But a guy at Florida State that they actually were raving about is that fellow freshman Vandrevius Jacobs. Came in there, 4-star receiver in this year's class, overshadowed a little bit because of Williams. 6 foot, 175 pounds, but probably more of a boundary guy, at least based on his current skill set. This dude just tore it up in 77s. They said all this guy did was catch touchdowns all camp long. The coaching staff went out of their way to give him praise. It's going to be tough because they do have Coleman and Wilson. They brought in a couple of good tight ends in the portal. Jaheim Bell, Kyle Morlock, Destin Hill arrived on campus. We'll see what he's doing since he hasn't played football in a couple of years. Yeah. But I think that Jacobs is extremely talented. And I think for the quality of team that we expect Florida State to be, I think that he can get some run in some of these blowouts. So I think that he is a guy that I'm really, really interested in. He goes really late in Devy drafts, pretty late in C2C drafts. But I think that if he flashes a little bit this year, this is a guy that I'm buying all next offseason because he could be the next guy there, especially if Wilson and Coleman both go to the NFL along with Jordan Travis.
Nice.
Austin, I got a quick question for you. Does Hakeem Williams kind of give you Hakeem Butler vibes from Iowa State? That big guy that everybody fell in love with and just could not make in the NFL?
So we actually have some data from high school charting that we do not share publicly yet at C2C because we have not found a good way to do so. Hakeem Williams is literally the worst player we've ever charted when it comes to any sort of route running, any sort of yards per separation per route run, or anything of that metric, really. So he is definitely complete projection right now. And you never want to completely roll those guys out because if a guy that has a 98th percentile speed score in our system figures it out, then yeah, that's a scary guy. But I think, Hakeem Butler is probably the kind of guy that maybe you predict he ends up being just because, yeah, it's these guys are more and more refined when they enter college now than they ever have been because of the 7v7 and just the professionalization of even high school football, where if you're not working with a high-end coach in the off season, you're losing ground. So these guys should be able to run routes when they get to college. If they're not, it's a pretty big red flag, and he really can't at this stage. So I am quite worried for him.
Two things. One, I need to start bringing a journal when you're on, Austin, like that Mark Cuban gif where he's writing down notes at the Shark Tank. That's me. But also kind of sad because I just took Hakeem Williams in our Devy draft over Shadou Sanders. So
I saw that.
Thanks for that. No, but I mean, y'all bring up some interesting takes, and I think that goes to show high school athletes in general, man. I mean, they're getting bigger or more refined to understand what it takes to get to that college level. So they're having the size already. And so it's easy to fall in love with these guys that have the size going in, but yet they go to college and it's like, you need more than that, right? You need to have the technique. It's not just all about the physical traits. So, I mean, I think y'all brought up some good points there where me, myself, falling in love with Hakeem Williams, but the idea of that it's more than that, shows a lot. I mean, because these high school kids, man, you're getting some freshmen going in there at 6'5", 200 pounds ready to go, but then that's what they were all high school. They didn't grow anything more. They didn't develop further into a skill set. They just became this big specimen.
It really becomes a cost proposition for some of the really big athletic freak wide receivers that don't really know how to play receiver yet, for me at least. So I really like a guy like Malachi Coleman this year, who I think is kind of similar, although I think he is a reasonable amount more refined than him. But if we're looking at, taking Hakeem Williams, if we're talking about amongst freshmen, he's probably a top 6, 7 wide receiver off the board, depending on who you're drafting with. And Coleman's closer to 12, 15, 18. I can stomach that cost a lot more and swing for the fences. And I don't necessarily want to do it with a super early pick. It's just personally, I struggle with that, but I just kind of like the cost proposition with them being a guy that I can take a little bit later, as opposed to the guy I have to spend up to do it with. Nicholas Harbor, another guy this year that I don't love for that reason.
Yeah, as a former high school football coach, you got to look at the kids that know how to use their body and do stuff. And some kids, it's like, I'm bigger, I'm better in high school. And they just push that around. They don't necessarily get better. And that's the tough part to figure out translating to college for a lot of people. It's like, you look at those kids, you're like, hey, that kid's dominant. But is he dominant because of his size and everyone else is so much smaller than him, or he's so much more mature than them? Or is it a kid that works on his craft, figures out how to be better? Those are big differences. They're big, big differences. I mean, I saw kids that were absolute athletic freaks in college. I'm like, that kid's just, it doesn't matter what we do right now. He's just better than anyone around him. Now you get to that college level, it's all athletic freaks. So you got to figure out, how do you work into that mix? And I think that's the problem for some of these guys, is they're so used to, especially big wide receivers, they're so used to being the dominant guy that no one can stop. It's hard for them to kind of figure out, like, hey, I need to improve this, or I need to improve that. Just throw it up. I'm bigger than that guy. I'll catch it. I'll run him over. I'm faster than him. And I think sometimes that's the tough transition for some of the real big guys, where smaller wide receivers, they've had to work their whole career. Hey, technician, make that cut, make that catch. And I think some of those guys, when they go from high school to college, they're more ready because they've been working that way their whole life. Where some of the big guys are just like, hey, I've always been bigger and better. And they haven't necessarily worked on those skills as much because they've relied on their talent heavily.
Agreed.
That's fair. Actually, Austin, I had a question for you. Kanata Mumpfield at Pitt, are we just completely out now, or is I mean, last year he was getting some hype, but then he just didn't do much of anything. Are we still in, or are we out now?
There's an outside chance, if you're playing in some sort of like a C2C format, that he's moderately intriguing. Jerkovic really, really liked throwing to Zay Flowers when he was at Boston College. And while I don't think Kanata Mumpfield is Zay Flowers, I do think he's probably the most dynamic receiver on Pitt currently. So there is a chance that he produces fairly well this year paired with Jerkovic. But for Devy purposes, I don't have a ton of expectation for him right now. So he's probably a late day 3 guy, even if he has a really big year, if I had to guess.
Another question for you. With Flowers leaving Boston College, do you think Joseph Griffin Jr. has a decent shot there to really kind of step up and become Devy relevant?
Depends what they do with their what happens with Emmett Moorhead, who's the QB here stepping in to replace Jerkovic. He's kind of, a big pocket passer guy who wants to push the ball downfield a little bit. So I think that meshes really well with Joseph Griffin. I think that if I had to predict which receiver actually leads them this year, it's probably Ryan O'Keefe, because I think he can kind of take on Zay's role. But I do think that Griffin will have a chance to showcase what he can do. Win downfield. He's a bit more of kind of that vertical, springy, straight line kind of guy that wins at the catch point. I think that he'll definitely have some chances to do that this year for sure. He didn't drop a single pass last year, I think, which is pretty crazy for a true freshman with the type of volume that he saw. He's
got great size. Yeah. I know you're not the height, weight, size guy, for wide receivers, but he does. He's got that prototypical size you're looking for, and he's a pretty good runner too. So, yeah. Well, all right. Well, let's move into our final category of the night. We're going to go with the ACC tight ends to finish off tonight's show. It's kind of a weak group. Tight ends generally are, But we're going to go into some guys here, to take keep an eye on. Jaheim Bell transferred in from South Carolina to Florida State. I'm actually really, really high on Bryson Nesbitt at North Carolina. I think he's got a ton of talent. Outside of that, is there anybody else where we're getting any type of excitement for?
I like the Miami duo, Skinner and Arario. I think those are just two. I'm using the word physical specimen a lot. I don't know why I'm doing that a lot today, but those two guys are just monsters. They're both athletic freaks that they don't necessarily have to line up at the tight end position. They can line up outside and still make some big plays. So those are two guys I'm watching because I think they can definitely transition well, just based on their size, but also because they have elevated their game. They're not winning because of their size. They're actually winning because they're athletic. They can be a vertical threat, but they can also make the plays. It's someone where you want someone that has a good IQ to not only run the flat route, but also know what to do in the next 10 yards, and I think I see that in Arario, Elijah. Skinner, is someone that can be your jumbo wide receiver. So you can possibly have both these guys on the field at the same time, and that just be a nightmare for defenses if they're both going vertical at you. So that's a tight end duo that I'm really interested in seeing as far as who necessarily sees the field more or just who makes more out of their opportunity, because I both think they'll both get some targets there, but who's going to make more out of those opportunities and turn those receptions into positive yardage.
A guy I'll talk about as a Syracuse guy is a Rondé Godson. Godson, he's listed as a tight end. Is this what makes it a little crazy? He's technically listed as the Syracuse tight end, but he almost does nothing as a tight end. He's pretty much a slot guy. He plays off the line. He doesn't block a lot. I like him. I like his size. I'm just not sure he's fast enough or athletic enough to play a slot as a big tight end in the NFL. And then he's definitely not big enough to block all the time. So he's a guy I like. And as a Syracuse fan, it's tough to say this, but he's been flying up Devy boards, and I'm not sure why. I like him, but I just don't see where he fits in the NFL right now, unless he goes to a team that is like, hey, we want a big guy that's like a tight end that's off the line, that's just going to match up against linebackers, and that's who we want. It seems weird to me where he's at. I like him in C2C. He's a great C2C play or CFF play as a tight end because he's basically Syracuse's number one wide receiver. So he's going to give you great production as a tight end. But in a Devy format, I want to love him in a Devy format, but I just don't, because I just don't see where he fits in.
What do you think of Johnny Wilson, another guy that is, he's not listed as a tight end now, but people are kind of projecting him that way. I know Phil Steele had him as a tight end in his magazine this year.
I mean, kind profile's the same way, doesn't he? He didn't really do a whole lot of blocking, and just kind of a big guy you throw there on the, either in the slot or the outside and kind of throw it up to him.
I watched a ton of Syracuse games last year as a Syracuse fan, and I don't know. I wasn't watching tape, scouting every play to play, but I very rarely saw him in line. Very rarely. He was almost always in the slot or all the way outside. I know they list him as a tight end, like I said, but he just did not play like a tight end at all. And so that's what worries me. He feels like a tweener that has good skill, but where does he fit at the NFL level in Devy? Again, guy I love in CFF, love in C2C, especially as a tight end, but I just don't see where he makes it in the NFL at his current position, depending on what he does.
Right. There was one specific tight end that I kind of had a little bit further down here on the list, but Jake Brenning stole out of Clemson. I I watched him in the Orange Bowl last year against Tennessee, and he would take screen passes on the outside and just run down the sideline. And he has really good size, really good speed, athleticism. I think he has a good shot to have a really big season.
Anyone remembers when Jaleel Billingsley was originally at Alabama? And they listed him, I believe, kind of like at the offseason, he started getting some buzz. They listed him at like 235. And you went and watched their spring game, and you were like, there is literally a 0% chance that dude is within 10 to 15 pounds of 235. That's what I feel like with Jake Brenningstool. They have him listed at 230 plus, and I'm like, there is a 0% chance that dude weighs 230 pounds. But I do think he has a really good year this year, almost as a pseudo slot guy for Clemson, because I do think he is really smooth, fun athlete. I wish he could bulk. I don't know if he's capable of getting to 240. Like I don't, because he's been basically the same size since he got there. Yeah, he's 6'6". Like he's just kind of like a lankier guy. I wish if he could get to 245, I love his ball skills, and I think he'd still have pretty good athletic tools for that size. I mean, fingers crossed. I'm so skeptical that he is actually what they have him weighing in as.
Well, they actually said he was still growing this past off season. Like he got up to like 6'7".
Geez, so he's even taller now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, he grew like an inch and a half over the off season.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, I like Brenningstool too. I actually like him, but I feel like he's in that same Gadsden category, where he's like a guy that's like a big slot, but is not really a blocker. He feels like a big outside wide receiver, and so that's where I'm not sure what the NFL is going to do with him. I like him. I think he's got talent. I like both those players, but to me, for them to succeed at the NFL level, they have to end up on the right team that's going to use them where they're the second tight end who playing big slot, but he's one of the top targets in that group. Because if they're a traditional tight end, I think both those guys are in trouble.
Speaking of,
I just don't think they can make a team.
Speaking of traditional tight end, I think really the only traditional tight end on this list right here is probably Gavin Bartholomew. What do you think, Austin?
I agree with 100%.
Yeah, him or Tactics or however you say his last name are the only two that I think can play that way. And I like Bartholomew. I've cooled on him just a tiny bit. He didn't quite take the step I thought he would last year, although tight ends longer development tree there. So I do like Gavin Bartholomew though quite a bit. I selfishly hope he stays a couple more years at Pitt.
Yeah, I wanted to get your thought on him, considering you're the Pitt fan there. So,
hey, it's Jerkovich season with him. It's gonna be a great season with Bartholomew and Jerkovich.
Big Jerkovich guy. Well, all right, guys. Well, I think that's probably going to wrap up. The Devy relevant guys from the ACC. Do you guys have any more thoughts on any of these players?
I think a lot of these guys, this is like your sleeper conference. You're taking a chance on a lot of these guys here. Some of them can boom, some of them can bust. But definitely if they bust, don't sell early. Because just wait, because they do have the potential. And it's definitely someone, if you're trading for some of these guys, I think your best value is going to be at the end of the season when their draft stock is rising or, possibly going down, and you capitalize on that.
Sure. Go and tell everybody where we're able to find you. Austin, go ahead and lead us off there.
Yeah, apologize for showing up here a little bit late, but yeah, Austin at Devy Deets on Twitter, and everything that I do is at campus2canton.com. Podcast, YouTube, written work. So if you're looking for more of me, which maybe not, that's where you can find me.
You gonna be at the expo?
Oh, I sure am. I'm in Pittsburgh, so I feel like I'm obligated to go because it's like
right.
2.5 hours from me. So yeah, I will be there. Yeah, you guys all gonna be there?
I will be. Bob will be. JT, or are you going to the?
I'm going. Expo? Yeah. Me and John McGlynn rolling in from Illinois. We'll be there.
Awesome.
I will not be there this year, but it's on my bucket list to go next year for sure.
There we go. JT, go and tell us about what else you got going on as far as your other show, your projects you got going on.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JT Orange. I play every type of league. Hit me up about anything. There's not a league I don't play in. Also, you can find my other show outside the Devy show here on Dynasty Pros, the Stew with JT Brew. We've been breaking down every team. Go back right now on YouTube. Listen to me and SC break down the Houston Texans. We've got all the different teams we're breaking down for the whole year. Outlooks, rookie draft, IDP. We're doing it all. So check that out, the Stew with JT Brew. And then if you're into IDP, I do a lot of IDP stuff for DLF, IDP rankings, articles, that kind of stuff.
All right, the Shadow Cat SC Romero. Tell us about you, buddy.
Yes, sir. I mean, going off what JT, I'm in just about every league. Not best ball, so don't really come to me at best ball. I'm just not a fan of that. But everything else, Devy, IDP, C2C, you name it, I'm in it. You can find me on Twitter at the PPR store. I guess I should say X now. I don't know what you call the new app. But then also you can find some of my articles on RPO football, and then doing shows with these guys, with the Dynasty pros, talking about some Devy, talking about team breakdowns. You name it, I'm studying more and more to get familiar knowledge, and come to me. I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all have.
Yeah, awesome. Well, as always, fun show tonight, guys. Looking forward to we're gonna do another one a week from tonight because we kind of got off schedule. So we're gonna go back-to-back weeks here tonight and then next Monday. Next Monday we're gonna go with the Big 12, and then 2 weeks after that we will finish up the off season with the Big 10, and we may even dive into a little Group of 5 action also. For Austin, JT, SC Romero, I am Tommy Harvey. We will see you guys next time.